Hey, you got a prom or something?
Pardon?
You got a prom or something?
No, this is what I made. Yeah, I'm making a video of my dress.
That's great.
Thank you. You're walking a bit too fast. You're moving too fast. You're going too fast. Say hello. This is Biscuit, my little bunny rabbit. She just turned 2. And this is Cotton. Hello everyone. This is part 2 of my Jasmine limited edition doll dress. If you haven't watched part 1, I recommend it because I go into detail on how I create the bodice. In this video, I'll be showing you how I make my skirt and the bottoms. But hopefully you guys like the video, and yeah, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe. So let's get to it. So the first thing that I did was made a mock-up using calico. I wanted to make sure I got the correct length and shape for the skirt. Then I realised that making only 3 panels wouldn't show the embroidery that I planned to do very well, so I made an extra 2 panels. This gave the skirt a better drape when moving and expanded more. I knew it would be time consuming, but if I wanted to make it as a costume designer, I have to go above and beyond. Once that's all done, I drafted out my design on each panel. The middle panel, being the largest, would have the most detailing, as it can be seen from behind. Again, I was inspired by this doll dress, so it's not going to be accurate. However, it gives me more space to add my own designs in too. I used chalk to draw my designs. Chalk can easily be rubbed off and would not stain the fabric. The middle design was drawn by freehand. It took me a while, so my sister held the reference picture up so I can get a better idea on placement. The other panels are smaller and the designs on them are the same. To ensure that the placement and size of the designs are the same, I use paper to trace it. That way I don't have to constantly check if it's in the right position or if the outline has gone off a little. That's not to say I don't measure at all, but mistakes are less likely. I bought 3mm rope. The length I bought was around 9 meters, which was just enough as I will be using this to decorate. I also bought dark purple ribbon. The roll had 25 meters, so I knew I wouldn't have to worry about running out. On top of that, the ribbon was only £1, so which was a steal. I started off using the ribbon and carefully pinning them in place where the outline is. The ribbon that I bought was not cut on a bias, unlike bias binding tape, so it was limited in movement. This meant that any turn that I did had to overlap the ribbon. I made sure that it still looks neat, and I suppose it gave it extra texture too. If you hear noises at the back, that's my rabbit eating. There's a lot of fabric inside the shape, and that's because tension was created when I was sewing down the ribbon. It pulls at the side. So what I'm going to do is a thing called fabric manipulation. Now I'm going to do some pleats in the center so it actually smooths it out once I've sewn everything together. So I'm going to follow the lines that I've made by chalk and make some pleats like that, sew it down, and that will smooth the shape out. Always proud of like any mistakes that I'm able to fix, and yeah, it looks a lot flat now. I'm going to put a gem on top so it covers this bit here because there's still a bit more pucker, but it's fine, you know, especially after I give it a good press. I'm sure it'll be fine, but yeah, I'm quite happy with it. It looks really nice. The tricky part, I am doing the heart out of ribbon this time. I'm going to have to do a lot of pleats so it bends, but yeah, exactly the same. I drew the shape that's very similar to the doll using white dressmaker pencil and did the same at the top, and I'm going to do a straight stitch using either gold or silver thread. Because this fabric is so fine, if I stitch it would end up tightening like it did with this, so I'm going to put some interfacing, which is an iron-on fabric, at the back where I marked, and then sew it with a straight stitch so it's a lot tighter and it doesn't move about, so it doesn't stretch. I am careful with my heat setting, and I also add a layer of fabric before ironing my fabric as it's very thin. Also, you want to make sure that the shiny side of the interfacing is facing the side of the fabric you want to iron, as it acts as the glue. So I think I am going to do some beading. I think it looks really nice so far. It looks very clean. Embroidery is like something that I'm really good at. It's a niche that I'm really good at. So I'm just going to embroider the heck out of this. Straight stitch on the ribbon, and the ribbon, if you can see, has a clean edge so it won't fray. But I kind of like the ruffle look that stands out a little bit. I was going to sew another line here to flatten it down, but I actually really like the ruffle look, so I'm just thinking maybe leaving it like that. I have some ribbon, a lot of it. Okay. And I think it would be very, very nice to actually hand sew it onto the panels. Yeah, I don't know, I think this is 3mm size. If I hand sew it like this, with this thickness, and I'm planning to hand sew it all the way around the ribbon, I think it might be a bit too heavy. So if I just twist it open and just use that instead of both, just one of them instead of both, and then sew it all the way around across the ribbon so it wouldn't be heavy, I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm just hand stitching half of the rope at the edge of the ribbon, and I've used gold thread for this. It's a tedious technique, but it's going to look lovely and it's starting to come together. After this I'm going to put some gems, but I'll show you this after I've done the sewing. I actually don't mind hand sewing. I find it very therapeutic in comparison to doing machine stitch. I'm in a dilemma because I feel like this is still a bit too thin, and I want to hand stitch larger and longer straight stitches in the middle, and I don't know if I should use silver thread or the iridescent thread that I used on my Cinderella dress, because I've still got some left, and I think I'm going to put some beads as well, so I'm not quite sure. In my drawer I found some blue beads and I think they're just lovely. So I'm just going to sew it onto my panel on this design. It gives it like a sparkle look, but it's just really, really nice. And I want to end up using those blue beads and finish them off. So, you know, it's a perfect idea. So that's what I'm going to do. I've done one side and it's a tedious process, but you know, I decided I wanted my own hand embroidery for the middle panel, so I pulled back the bottom ribbon and used it as a base to embroider. Jasmine is a type of flower, so I went with a simple jasmine design using silver thread. My sister ended up really liking this, and I think it's one of my favourite parts of the skirt. I have some leftover trimmings from my bodice, the gold one, and I made this shape, and it's nice because it's very 3D and it dangles, so I'm just going to hand sew on the flat areas where the trimmings meet the fabric, and then I'm just going to let it dangle like this. I might add some beads around here as well, or gems. I'm quite lucky. The other panels are a lot more smaller, and on the doll the design is a lot more simple, so I've still stuck to ribbon, so I've sewn a ribbon which follows the shape of the doll's design, and I'm also going to use gold thread to do the outline. Although you can't see it, I promise you I drew it in chalk. It's just fading a little bit, but I'm going to use this rope and I'm going to sew it all the way around. The initial idea was to follow the first panel that I did and just do a single, but I think it's because it's not really heavily embroidered compared to the first panel, so I'm just going to go with double twisted rope and just go all the way around. And bought some beads because I ran out of my own beads, and I've also marked where I'd like to put the beadings on. So yeah, even though it is a smaller panel and less detailed with less textiles, I still want it to look as nice, and it corresponds with the bigger panel that I've just done. Use this like dark purple one and either a blue one, a white one, or this lighter purple. Jasmine's known to wear green a lot, but I don't think so it would look nice with the dark blue fabric. But yeah, these are the 4 colours that I'm going to use, and hopefully it'll make it pop a little bit more. You can see why I didn't do that much embroidery on my bodice, because there's so much embroidery to do on my skirt panels, so that's the reason why. Yeah, but it is time consuming, but I promise you it will be worth it at the end. So I've pinned it down, you see, and I'm meant to hand stitch it here so it doesn't go through the main fabric. But I've spent the whole month making this skirt and I just want to get it over and done with, so I don't know if I want to just straight stitch it. The thing about straight stitching is that it will go through the fabric, and the proper way to do it is hand stitching because that's the more professional way to do it. So I don't know. Okay, so long story short, don't take shortcuts. The mistakes would just hold you back. I did a straight stitch and it didn't look as clean, so I had to unpick the whole stitch. Then I went back and hand stitch it all using a blind hem stitch, and remember there's 2 sides to it, so it took me a while. But I'm glad I did because it looks clean and professional. Anyone who would look into this piece would wonder how every stitch is invisible. And each project that I do, I improve in my sewing skills, so it's not exactly a loss. After this project, I'm going to make a Princess Aurora Woodlands dress or a peasant dress. It's also inspired by the doll, so if you're interested in seeing how I make that in a future video, I'd appreciate it if you subscribe. Right, excuse the mess, and I don't have enough space. I think I have to tiptoe, but I found out this skirt, and this is what it looks like sewn together. I think it looks so beautiful. Again, it's not the same as the doll, but I take inspiration from it. There are a few things that I need to do, like cut out some, excess thread, and I need to do the triangle panels. So I'm going to tack that and hopefully bias bind it. I'm sewing my triangle bit. Look at that. Oh, it's a good thing that I'm using bias binding tape to cover it. I used chalk to mark where I wanted the triangle pieces to be, and then I did straight stitches using white thread so I can see, and that would act like a guideline. This is called bias binding tape. I spoke about it in my Cinderella video, and I'm just going to add that onto the ends where the white stitches are. I think I'm going to make the bias binding tape visible as well, so it'll just be folded in half like that, and then it'll be straight stitched across, instead of what I did with my bodice, which was hiding the bias binding tape so you couldn't see it on the main fabric. You can see there. Finished bias binding the bottom end of the fabric. I'm using gold thread, and I've also bias bind the top as well. So I'm making a waistband, and as you can see, I'm doing 3 layers. Skirt is just too heavy. It's going to be way too heavy, and I feel like 2 fabric pieces is just not enough. Yeah, it's not going to be strong enough, so I just ended up using some leftover calico, and this calico is heavyweight, so it's going to be very, very strong and sturdy. It will distribute the weight of the skirt a lot better than just using 2 panels. Okay, so the worst part about sewing is that sometimes you sew things and then you make a mistake, and then you feel bad because you used all of that fabric. I made the waistband a little bit too small, and it's meant to go all the way around, and it's strong enough to hold the skirt because the skirt's going to flare out. And I know what you're thinking, like that little dip at the end. You know how I made a placket for this bodice? I'm doing the exact same thing for the waistband, and it's just going to attach on top so it conceals everything. I've added eyelets to the waistband on both sides so I can attach the skirt together onto the waist, and now I'm just attaching the skirt by hand stitching it onto the waistband, doing herringbone stitches. So as it's a skirt, even though it's an open skirt, I still want movement, so yeah, I'm doing herringbone stitches all the way across. I'm just using this on there, and I know it's small, but there's going to be some chains, or maybe 2 chains. Found some royal blue jersey fabric that's stretchy, and I'm using it to create the bottoms. I don't have a pattern piece for the bottoms, so my friend suggested that I use my own jogger bottoms and trace around it. Jasmine bottoms is wider, so I made sure to add extra space, especially at the ankles. Because it's a stretchy fabric, I use pins as a guideline instead of chalk. The crotch seam is not straight, it's at a curve, so I made sure to remember to cut it in a curve, as I only bought 1.5 meters worth of fabric, so there's no room for error. Once all cut, I pinned it inside out and made sure the curved seams meet in the middle first before pinning everything down, and this ensures it's even on both sides. To sew it together, I did a zigzag stitch and then a straight stitch, and lastly added an elastic waistband.